Okay, hi, welcome again to this lesson on engineering economics. This time we have a new topic, the time value of money. So in this lesson, we'll talk about simple and compound interest and the concept of equivalence and cash flow diagrams. So we have a few examples kung paano compare ng mga cash flows and to illustrate yung differences ng simple and compound interest. Okay? So, let's start. So, let us define some important terms for this lesson. First, let us define capital. Capital refers to wealth in the form of money or property that can be used to produce more wealth. It is a broad term for the financial assets of a business or an individual. So next, let us define ano naman yung interest. Okay? Interest is a payment from a borrower or deposit-taking financial institution to a lender or depositor of an amount above repayment of the principal sum. That is the amount borrowed at the particular rate. Okay? So, yung interest, ito yung binabayad natin above dun sa ating principal na inutang. Okay? Dahil yung pera na hiniram natin ay meron niyang kapalit na kita doon sa nagpahiram sa atin. So, yun yung tinatawag nating interest. And profit means a financial gain, especially the difference between the amount earned and the amount spent in buying, operating, and producing something. So, yan yung pinagkaiba ng interest and profit. So, yung interest natin, usually, meron yan. Pag hindi tayo bumibili or nagpapahiram tayo, merong interest. Pero yung profit, yun yung difference between the amount earned and the amount spent in buying, operating, and producing something. Okay? So now, let us go to our main discussion. Let us discuss simple interest and compound interest. So what is simple interest? When a total interest earned or charged is linearly proportional to the initial amount of the loan or principal, we can say that the interest is simple. So, ibig sabihin, linear lang siya. Ang pinagbabasehan lang natin is yung principal or kung magkano yung principal na hiniram or pinahiram. Okay? So, ang tawag doon is simple interest. So, meron tayong formula ng simple interest. So, itong capital letter I, ito yung amount ng interest. It is equal to the principal amount na hiniram or pinahiram times the number of interest periods. So, for example, years in years. And then yung kanyang interest rate in percent per interest period. So, doon natin ma-solve or ma-compute kung ilan yung magiging interest niya per period, for a specific period. So, next, let's define what is compound interest. So, kanina, binanggit natin na simple interest, linearly proportional to the initial amount of principal. Ngayon naman, whenever the interest charge for any interest period, a year for example, is based on the remaining principal amount. Ibig sabihin kung magkano na yung natitira pa na principal plus yung pumapatong or yung nadadagdag na kinikitang interest doon sa mga nakalipas na periods o nagsimula doon sa beginning period is said to be compound. So, paano yan? We have here an illustration to show ano ba yung simple interest. Okay? So, sa simple interest, yung amount of interest, hindi yan tumataas at the end of each interest periods. It's the same kasi hindi naman din nagbabago yung principal mo. Same siya dahil ang pinagbabasehan natin is the initial amount of the principal loan. So, kaya yung ating interest is flat or the same for every interest period. Okay? But for compound interest, for every interest period, yung ating principal, kung magkano pa yung natira doon na hindi pa natin nababayaran, plus yung kinitang interest nung mga nakaraang interest period na hindi pa natin nababayaran, magiging basis para magpag-compute ng bagong interest. Okay? So, in short, simple interest, linearly proportional to the initial amount. Compound interest is based on the remaining principal amount plus the accumulated interest beginning from the beginning hanggang dun sa huling interest period. Alright? So, yun yung difference. Pakitandaan na lang. So, next, we have an example to illustrate difference ng simple interest and ng compound interest. So, assuming, or let's say, na nanghiram tayo ng $1,000 for 3 periods at an interest rate of 10% compounded for each period. The question is, how much is due for payment at the end of the third period? So, for our solution, we have a table here na bini-breakdown kung paano yung payment and yung amount na utang, then yung interest per period, and then magkano yung total na utang at the end of the period. So for the first period, ang hiniram mo, for example, is $1,000. So at the end of the first period, nagkaroon ng interest yung borrowed money, of course, right? So that will be the 10% of that particular amount. So in this case, 1,000 times 10%, so that's 100. So at the end of the first period, ang utang mo na is $1,100. Right? So, ayos. Now, at the beginning of the second period, ang total na utang mo na is $1,100, diba? So, dahil compounded each period yung ating interest, papatawan ulit ng 10% yung 1,100 natin dahil yun na yung remaining principal plus yung interest nung first period. So now, ang pagbabasihan na natin is 1,100 times 10% of that will be 1,110. So at the end of the second period, ang utang mo na will be 1,210. Okay? And this 1,210 will be the amount owed at the beginning of period number 3. Okay? So, pumapatong siya ng pumapatong. At dumadagdag siya ng dumadagdag for each period. Now, the 10% of this 1,210 is 121. And at the end of the third period, ang utang mo na from 1,000 na hiniram mo is 1,331. So in the perspective of the lender, kumita na yung 1,000 mo na pinahiram mo nung una, kumita na siya ng $331 at the end of the third period. Okay? So that's good. But at the perspective naman ng borrower, it costs you $331 at the end of the third period just to borrow $1,000 at the present time. So, yun yung difference. Okay? So now, at the right, we have a graph which illustrates paano kung simple interest lang yung ginamit. Di ba? So, itong first line natin, itong hanggang 1,331, ito yung na-solve natin para dito sa example. Pero paano naman kung simple interest lang siya? No? Kung simple interest lang siya, at the end of the first period, 1,100. At the end of the second period, magiging 1,200, dahil plus 100 lang siya ng plus 100. And then at the end of the third period, magiging 1,300 lang siya. No? So, mas malaki ang compound interest, yung value ng compound interest versus dun sa simple interest. It is because ang basis natin ng compound interest is the remaining balance at the beginning or at the end of that particular period. Okay? So, yan. I hope medyo maliwanag sa inyo yung pag-differentiate natin ng simple and compound interest. Okay? Okay. For this next example, we'll be discussing how to select a particular option among alternatives. This is a basic problem or classic problem, and you may encounter this in your lives. So suppose that you have $17,000 balance on your credit card. So laki ng utang mo, 17,000. And we know that yung credit card mo na hindi mo pa nababayaran, yung balance na yun, will be charged at the rate of 1% at the beginning of every month. So yung credit card company, kumikita yan sa'yo. At the beginning of every month, by a particular interest rate. Dahil hindi ka nagbabayad, papatawan ka nila ng charge. So now, you decided to repay the $17,000 in 4 months. No? So you have a plan. Although you have 3 options. First option will be to pay the interest rate at the end of each month and the principal at the end of the 4th month. Okay? So ibig sabihin, interest rate lang babayaran mo every month, and then yung principal na 17,000, mabayaran mo na siya after the 4th month. So pinakadulo na siya. Your second plan will be to pay the principal and interest in one payment at the end of the 4th month. So one time, big time, babayaran mo siya. In 4 months, babayaran ko lahat yung utang ko. 17,000 plus the interest. So that's the second plan. The third plan will be to pay the debt in 4 equal end-of-month installments. So, hahatiin daw sa 4 yung iyong total na utang, and then mag-installment ka. Okay? So, the question now at hand will be, ano yung plan na gagamitin natin to pay this 17,000 balance in 4 months? That will be the problem. So for our solution, unlike the first example, we will be using the concept of equivalence. Ano ibig sabihin nito? Dahil meron tayong options, hindi natin sila basta ma-compare dahil magkakaiba yung kanilang represent. Okay? Magkakaiba yung timing, magkakaiba yung kanilang amount, magkakaiba yung kanilang magiging effect doon sa iyong plan or problem. So, we will consider the comparison of these alternative options or proposals by reducing them into equivalent basis that is dependent on, first, the interest rate. Next is the amounts of money involved for each period. And lastly, the timing of receipts and expenses. So, we will illustrate the concept of equivalence shortly on the following slide. Okay? So now, itong plan 1 muna. Yung plan 1, ang sabi, you will pay the interest due at the end of each month and then yung principal dun sa dulo. Okay? So, I have a table here. Sinolve na natin yung kanilang amounts. So, first month, yung utang mo is 17,000, and at the rate of 1%, yung interest na magigain nun will be $170. Okay? So at the end of this first month, yung utang mo na will be 17,170. And your payment, according to your plan, Yung payment mo para sa principal is 0, pero babayaran mo yung interest na 170. Okay, so the payment for each month will be 170 for the interest. Now, at the beginning of the second period, magkano na yung utang mo? Again, that will be $17,000. Kasi yung binayaran mo lang is 170 na yung interest para dun sa unang month. Now, this 17,000 will incur $170 again at the end of the second month. Which in turns, at the end of the fourth month, ang utang mo pa rin will be 17,000, although you have paid more than $400 na for the interest alone, right? So that's the message behind this first plan, okay? At the start of the fourth month, ang utang mo is 17,000. It will gain interest again for $170. So at the end of the fourth month, you will owe them, the bank or the credit card company, 17,170. And now, you will have to pay for the principal, according to your plan, magbabayad ka ng 17,000 plus yung 170 na interest. So, all in all, you have paid an interest amounting to $680 just to pay for this $17,000 na balance mo sa credit card. That's plan number 1. How about the second plan and the third plan? So let's see. For the second plan, you plan to pay the principal and the interest in one payment at the end of the fourth month. So this is worse. Okay? Bakit? Kasi kanina, dun sa first plan, binabayaran mo yung interest. It is good. You're paying something. Pero dito sa second plan, ang gusto mo, one time, big time, babayaran mo yung principal and yung interest at the end of the fourth month. So, ang mangyayari dyan, nag-iipon yung interest, pumapatong yun dun sa principal, which, dahil ang problem natin is compound interest, siya yung nagiging, yung remaining balance mo at the beginning of the month will be the basis ng yung interest. So, at the end of the fourth month, or at the beginning of the first month, 17,000 pa yung utang mo, and then at the second month, naging 17,100, then at the third month, naging 17,341.7. At the beginning of the fourth month, lumobo na yung utang, naging 17,515.12, which will earn again interest of 175.15. Kanina, binabayaran lang natin na interest is 170. Okay? So, at the end of the fourth month, ang total na utang mo sa credit card will be 17,690.27. So, of course, you have the money. So, pwede mo nang bayaran itong 17,600.27. But compared to the first plan, you spent $690.27 more compared to your principal. Okay? First plan and the second plan, hindi sila nagkakalayo. Nasa 600. It's up to you kung ano yung isa-select mo na plan. Well, for the next plan, that will be number 3. So dito, your plan is to pay off the debt in 4 equal end-of-month installments. Okay? So, ano yan? So, sabi natin, 17,000 yung utang. Diba? Then, at the end of the first period, magiging interest is 17,170. So, you decided to pay 4,187.1 for the principal. And you want to to pay for the interest na 170. So at the end of the first month, you paid $4,357.10. And so yung beginning mo ng second period or second month, naging 12,000 na lang siya. Diba? Hindi katulad kanina sa first plan, 17,000, pero sa second plan, mas lumaki pa. So in this plan number 3, bumababa yung ating beginning balance. Which, dahil bumababa na siya, maliit na lang din yung interest na ipapataw sa kanya ng credit card company. So, dahil doon, yung interest na babayaran mo to repay this $17,000 na utang has lowered from kanina 690 to $427.10. So, the importance of the concept of equivalence is we can now compare options or alternative options by considering yung mga amounts, timing, and the interest rate at hence, we can now select the best among these alternatives. So in this case, if I have $17,000 na balance sa aking credit card, I would choose plan number 3. I will pay in 4 equal end-of-month installments to complete this balance. If I can pay more in the first second month, I would choose. Bakit? Kasi para bababa yung beginning balance mo and in turn, bababa din yung interest rate. Okay? So, ganun yan. That illustrates the concept of equivalence and the difference between the simple and compound interest. Okay? So, yan. So, sabi, gamit tayo ng consistent viewpoints. Pagka magko-compare tayo ng mga alternatives, ganun yung gagawin natin. Okay? And then, next, for this one, we will use the following notations for the succeeding lessons. So, pakitandaan na lang itong mga to kasi gagamitin natin sila para sa mga formulas involved in compound interest calculations. Okay, so marami pa kasi yan. So, yung meron tayo dyan, I, it means the effective interest rate per interest period. So, meron kasing dalawang klase pa ng I na i-discuss natin. Capital letter N, that is the number of compounding periods. Okay? That is the number of compounding periods. P, it is the present sum of money, the equivalence value of one or more cash flows at the reference point in time called the present. So, not necessarily the future pa yung ating reference time. Pwede rin na tayong gumamit ng P in that sense. Okay? So, let's say, meron tayo mga 10 years, then pababalikin natin, we will now denote them as P. Okay? So, yung paggamit naman ng F, that means the future sum of money, the equivalent money of one or more cash flows at the reference point in time called the future. So, meron din tayo dyan, capital letter A. It means, capital letter A, end of each period cash flow. So let's say every month, every year, okay, in a uniform series continuing for a specific or specified number of periods. Ibig sabihin, ng A, yan yung hulog natin. Let's say 5 gives, 6 gives, equal amount yan or pwedeng hindi equal. Okay? ang sense ng A is that it is a uniform series continuing. Meaning, magkakasunod or merong series. Okay? So, palagi natin tatandaan itong mga notations na to. I, N, P, F, and A kapag magsasolve tayo ng mga problems in time value of money. Okay. Lastly, we also have to look for these conventions in the cash flow diagrams. So, in the future or in the succeeding lessons, mapapansin natin na mas magagamit yung mga cash flow diagrams in solving yung mga interest or yung mga present and future values. Okay, so we have here the cash flow diagram for the plan 2 na diniscuss natin kanina and the cash flow diagram for the plan 3. So, ayan, no, kung mapapansin niyo, yung plan 2 natin, di ba, babayaran natin at the end of the 4th month, one time, big time. And then yung ating cash flow dun sa plan number 3, 4 monthly installments. Okay, so paano ba natin tinitingnan yan? Yung horizontal line, yan yung ating time scale. Okay, 3% nakalagay dito, end of month. Minsan, end of year, beginning of month. So, ino-note natin yun dyan. Nakalagay, with the progression of time moving from left to right. Okay, the period, let's say year, quarter, kailangan nakalagay din para mas magamit natin yung diagram. Or yung iba, maiintindihan nila kung paano gumamit ng diagram na to. Okay? Yung ating mga cash flow. Okay? Meron kasi mapapansin nyo, upward, right? Meron downward. Okay? Pag sinabi natin upward, depends, no? It depends. In this case, ginamit niya yung upward to denote na yan ay outflow. Okay? Nagbayad. So, nagbayad ka ng 17,690.27. So, that is upward arrow. And then, yung downward, that means receipt. Pumasok, in. So, 17,000 ang natanggap mo. 17,000 na natanggap mo. And at the end of the 4th month, magbabayad ka. So, out. That's upward cash flow. So, again, upward, bayad, downward, receipt. Out, upward, out, downward, in. So, for the plan number 3, meron din. Nag-receive tayo ng 17,000, so that's downward cash flow. Pero magbabayad naman din tayo at the end of the month ng monthly installment natin. So, nakalagay dito, A, dahil yan ay uniform series. So, hindi na natin siya gagamitan ng F. Dahil itong ibig sabihin ng A, para dito sa first, second, third, and fourth na ating value ng N. Okay? For the interest rate of 1% per month. So, ganyan siya. Ganyan tayo mag-notation or convention ng ating cash flow diagrams. Pakitandaan na lang din yan kasi gagamitin natin yan ng maraming beses sa ating mga succeeding lessons. Alright? Alright. And that ends the first lesson for the time value of money. To wrap it up, we discussed simple and compound interest. We have problems to differentiate the two. We also discussed concept of equivalence and applied it in a real-life problem in paying out a credit card balance. And lastly, we discussed on the notations and cash flow diagrams, conventions. Okay? So in the next lessons, we will dig in further dun sa mga concepts ng time value of money. Okay? So that's it, and thank you very much.